You're welcome to another video of the course F5 Big IP Advanced WAF or ASM. In this section, I'm going to discuss and demonstrate different learning modes in F5 Advanced WAF, including never or wildcard only, selective, compact, and always, which determines how F5 Advanced WAF learns and adapts to each component of a web application. To learn the concept of learning modes in F5 Advanced WAF, I will focus on a specific component of web application parameter and limit the discussion to that to make the concept easier to understand. Therefore, as a first step, it's good to know what parameters are in a web application. In the context of web application, a parameter is a name variable used to transfer data between client and server. Parameters can be part of a URL, form data, or even HTTP headers. In the simplest form, you see the parameters in the URL. For example, in the URL like this, param1 and param2s are the parameters with the values value 1 and value 2 respectively. To effectively protect a web application, F5 Advanced WAF requires a comprehensive understanding of all allowed parameters and their values within the application. To better understand it, in the section security, application, and the parameters, as an example, a parameter like name, F5 Advanced WAF needs to know what is the allowed type of each parameter, user input, static values, dynamic values, JSON or XML, or what data types have each individual parameter, alphanumeric, numeric, string, boolean, date, time, IP address, or URL. What is the minimum and maximum value of each parameter? Which are the meta characters allowed for each individual parameter? And there are many other details that F5 Advanced WAF needs to know about the list of parameters and their corresponding values for each web application individually. Based on the learning mode, you now determine how F5 Advanced WAF learns the property of each parameter, learn individually as each parameter can have different properties, or generalize the properties of all parameters into a single asterisk parameters. For example, here you can see the parameters. All the parameters are learned individually or generalize them as a single asterisk parameter. There are 4 learning modes in F5 Advanced WAF: never, selective, and compact, and always. You can also see in the learning and blocking setting. For example, for the parameter, never, selective, compact, and always. For the never, in this mode, F5 Advanced WAF learn the property of all parameters in a single asterisk parameter. If the traffic property violates the policies defined in asterisk parameter and is a false positive, the system suggests relaxing the asterisk parameter setting. For example, here in the parameters, if a security policy defined by an asterisk parameter specified, the maximum length of a value must be 10 characters, and then legitimate traffic arrives with a specific parameter value that is 20 characters long. The policy will adapt, and the maximum size for asterisk parameter will be updated from 10 to 20 characters to accommodate this new observation. The next is selective. In this mode, F5 Advanced WAF learns the properties of all parameters in a single asterisk parameter. If the traffic property violates the policy defined in asterisk parameter and is a false positive, the system will add or suggest to add an explicit parameter with relaxed setting that avoid the false positive. For example, consider a security policy with wildcard or asterisk parameter dictate a maximum value length of 10 characters. If legitimate traffic arrives with the parameter Q and the value of the parameter q is 20 character long, the system will then recommend adding an explicit parameter q with a maximum value of 20 instead of 10 to reflect this new observation. The third is compact. In this learning mode, the properties of all parameters are configured under a single asterisk parameter except for those that occur frequently and having a learning score of 100. With this approach, policies for the most commonly used parameters are created individually while the rest are grouped inside or under the asterisk parameter. And finally, always in this learning mode, each parameter in web application is learned and fine-tuned individually, even if they have the same properties. However, in learning mode, we focus on the parameter component of a web application, but you can select learning mode for each component of a web application individually, such as file type, URL, and cookies. For example, here in learning and blocking setting, it's not only the parameter that you can choose the learning mode, but for example, the cookie, but file type, and also URL. Subsequently, I'm going to show each of the learning modes and demonstrate them practically. To start demonstration, I have to create a security policy. In the first step, I will delete the previous policy, virtual server list, and then PHP auction. In the tab security property, disable the current security policy, and then in the section application security and policy, I will delete the previous policy. Then I will create a new security policy with the name of auction based on comprehensive security policy and assigned to PHP auction virtual server, and with the language UTF-8, enforcement mode set to transparent, learning mode to manual, signature accuracy low, signature staging enable, and technology like always Linux, Apache, PHP, and MySQL, and then save. For the first demonstration, we select never or wildcard only learning mode in the parameter section in web application learning and policy building. Here in learning and policy building, and in the section parameter, we will choose the option never, but also we will enable learn, alarm, and block for all violations, and then save and apply the new policy. Before generating traffic, we see that by default there is only one parameter in the parameter list, asterisk. This means that the policy of all parameters of the web application are configured and fine-tuned under this asterisk parameter. If we look at the asterisk parameter, we see that you can pass empty values for all parameters. You will also see that the value of all parameters are specified by the user input. The data type is alphanumeric, and the maximum length of all parameter value is 10. By default, no meta characters are allowed and no attack signature is disabled. To demonstrate different learning modes, we need to generate traffic to the web application using different parameters. To do this, I log into the hack it yourself web application with username 1 and password 1, and then go, and then I will click on control panel. In the URL you see there is a parameter with the name of Nick and the value username 1. Then I will change the parameter value once to username 2 instead of username 1, and once to asterisk to show all usernames. And then I will add a new parameter with the name of name and the value of Alex. So far we have generated traffic with two parameters, once with the name of Nick and the other with the name of name. To generate traffic with other parameters and different values, we search for something here, for example 1 to 9, and then go. And in the URL you see that the search field is passed through the Q parameter, and this is the value of the Q parameter. To generate parameter value with different size, different meta characters, and also illegal data for the parameter Q, we search for the values in the search box. First I've already searched, the second with the length more than 10 but less than 20, and then third with the length more than 30 and a long length, and then meta characters, and then iframe, and then a script. To see and compare the difference between different learning modes, we will generate identical traffic patterns for each learning mode we select in the parameter security policy. Now we go to the section learning to see what F5 Advanced WAF has learned. In the section traffic learning, we filter based on parameter category. We filter based on parameters category, and we see the result of never wildcard only learning mode in the output. The result of learning in this mode shows that no new parameters are learned, all are asterisk, but only a few meta characters and attack signatures will be added in the asterisk parameter. That is, if we accept them, these meta characters will be added and these attack signatures will be disabled in asterisk parameter security policy. For the next demonstration, we select selective as the learning mode in the parameter section in web application learning and blocking setting. In the section parameter, and we change the learning mode from never to selective, and then we save and then apply the policy, and then we generate the same traffic pattern to check learning result. Here in the control panel, username 1, then we change to username 2, and then we change to a star, and then we will add a new parameter with the name of name and the value Alex, and then we will search something here in the search box with the first value, with a longer value, and then still longer, and still a very long value, and then meta characters, and then iframe, and then finally a script. And again we check the result in the section traffic learning, and we will filter based on parameter category, and then apply. As you know, in selective mode, only parameters whose traffic violate the asterisk security policy are learned. Since we violated the security policy for asterisk parameter only through the search field or queue parameter, then as you can see, queue parameter are learned with new meta characters and attack signatures. Queue meta character, queue with attack signatures. In other words, if we accept these new parameters, a parameter queue with new security policy will be added in the list of application parameters. As the third demonstration, I'm going to change the learning mode to always in the section parameter, and then here always, and then save, and finally apply the policy. If we generate the same traffic pattern, we will see that all three parameters, nick, name, and queue, will be learned individually since the learning mode is set to always. So I will start again in the control panel, change username 1 to username 2, and then change to a star, and then a new parameter, and then in the search we search the first value, and then we will continue to the end. iframe, and finally a script. And we will check again the result of learning mode in the tab traffic learning, and we filter based on the parameter category and then apply. As we expected, all three parameters queue, name, and nick are learned individually. In other words, if we accept these learning suggestions, individual security policy will be created for each parameter in the parameter list. And for the last demonstration, we will change the learning mode from always to compact, and then save, and then apply the policy. As we discussed at the beginning of this section, in compact learning mode, a parameter is learned when its learning score is 100. In the previous lessons, we learned that learning score of a learning suggestion increases when the same traffic comes from different sources at different time, or when it is generated from a trusted source. To simulate a traffic receiving a learning suggestion of 100, I will add my client IP address as a trusted IP address. So in the security policy, and then action, in the section IP address exception, and here I will create my IP address to 175 with mask /32 as a trusted IP address, and then add, and then apply policy. If we generate the same traffic, we will see that all parameters will be learned individually, since learning score will be immediately set to 100 since the traffic comes from a trusted IP address. So we will start again to generate traffic, control panel, and username 2, and then a star, and then a new parameter, and then search something in the search box. And then a frame, then a script, and finally we see the result again in the section traffic learning, and we will filter again based on parameter category and then apply. As you see, the new parameters, all parameters nick, name, queue, asterisk are learned, but this time the difference is that the learning score is 100. That means all these parameters are learned individually. Since the learning score is 100, since it comes from a trusted IP address, F5 Advanced WAF can trust 100% that the traffic is a trusted traffic. Then we will add a new parameter for each parameter individually, which learning score is 100. To see the result, first we check again the parameter list. At the moment there is only one parameter, asterisk, and then in the section learning and here in the category parameters, we will accept all parameters, add and again add, and we will come back again to the parameters list, and we see that all parameters are added individually when they are accepted. When we say that these traffic are not violation and they are false positive.